Welcome to the Savvy Shopkeeper Retail Podcast. I'm your host, Kathy Cruz. Just like you, I'm an independent retail business owner. I love the home decor and gift boutique I co-own with my sister, but I don't want it to consume me or my life. Join me each week as I share lessons learned, helpful tips, and valuable information for your retail business and life. Whether you're buying your products or making your products, whether you're a $25K business or a $2.5 million business, I'm on a mission to help indie retailers work less, profit more, and grow. Let's get started on today's episode. Welcome to episode 166 of the Savvy Shopkeeper Retail Podcast. Business lessons learned from Luis, the Uber driver. I'm your host, Kathy Cruz. Before I get started, I want to mention a comment by a member of Master Shopkeepers after I published episode 159 on burnout. Rose is a Master Shopkeepers member and she owns Happy Frog Inc. in East Bridgewater, Massachusetts. After listening to that podcast episode, Rose posted in our Facebook group, and this is what she said. I need to make time to listen to the Savvy Shopkeeper podcast because when I do, good things start to shift. Kathy talks about the river of misery in podcast 159, and this analogy popped into my head. Personally, I feel like I'm living in the swamp of burden. The river, although of misery, seemed more fast-paced and flowing, whereas the swamp I relate to because I feel stuck at times. A swamp is a forested area, damp, flat, or lowland with inches of still water to no more than a few feet. A swamp, in my mind, is cold, damp, probably smells bad with still water mixed with debris of leaves, sticks, and mud. It could be thick in places and then, without notice, dip down into a pool of water. As you crawl through, you're drowning from exhaustion. That is my burnout. From the ground looking up, the trees seem like obstacles and in your way as you try to navigate through. Then the aha moment came. Stand up, wade through, use those obstacles, let the trees guide you, hold on to them for balance, and push off to propel you forward. Of course there is discomfort. You're wet, you're tired and trudging through. That discomfort is your path out. Kathy, you always make me sit with my thoughts and see it from a new perspective. How do you do that? I'm no longer in the swamp. As the marsh is up ahead, baby steps to get to the river, I'll bring a canoe. I mean, how incredible is that? Not the fact that she was stuck in a swamp, but I mean, her writing, right? Just the storytelling is fantastic, but it's the type of aha moment I want listeners and Master Shopkeepers members to have. This is why I tell stories that make me uncomfortable. Rose absolutely has stepped into discomfort. She did this by attending the 2022 retreat, and the reward for doing this, I've seen an incredible shift in her since then. She shows up in Master Shopkeepers like she's never showed up before. She shares stories like this. She's analyzing her data. Like she recently shared a bookkeeping pie chart. It was incredible. She's telling her own story and she's constantly stepping into discomfort now. In episode 159, I explained that I was up-leveling again as an entrepreneur, and the discomfort of that almost kept me from pushing forward. Growth does come from discomfort. If we as entrepreneurs can learn to embrace the discomfort, growth is infinite. I'm going to say that one more time. If we as entrepreneurs can learn to embrace the discomfort, growth is infinite. Rose, thank you for sharing your follow-up thought to episode 159. Thank you for sharing your own journey and discomfort in the group. You may not realize it, but you will inspire other group members to follow suit. This episode is brought to you by my free resource, Tools of the Retail Trade Resource Guide, a 28-page downloadable resource filled with software, tools, and equipment recommendations just for brick-and-mortar retail store owners. Learn what I use and what other store owners are using. Visit savvyshopkeeper.com/resources. That's savvyshopkeeper.com/resources, and sign up for my newsletter to get the guide. Okay, let's get started on this quick but impactful episode. My intention for this episode is twofold: to share how perspective can define a business owner, and to share an important lesson that we often forget as business owners. First, I want to talk about the difference between income from a side hustle versus a small business. According to an article I think I found on Quora's website, it said a side hustle is something you do in your spare time for extra income. A small business is something with which you plan to make your living. Now, people define this differently. I guess it doesn't really matter, but the reason I mention it is because many of us probably view Uber drivers as side hustlers. I'm not saying this is right, it's just what most of us likely think. However, I recently was on vacation with my family. We took an Uber. We landed in Florida and we took an Uber to our hotel in Miami, and we met Luis, the Uber driver. I should scratch that. We met Luis, the business owner. In 20 minutes or so with Luis in the Uber, he used words like profit, margins, urgency, ROI, and cost of goods. I'm not kidding. He used all of these actual words. Luis even had a strategy for the rides he accepted and provided, all based on location, efficiency, and the cost of gas. Luis talked about cutting expenses because the quote-unquote ROI wasn't worth it. So you see, for a short time, Luis told us that he used to offer phone chargers and water and gum and mints as perks of riding in his Uber. But he quickly learned there wasn't much of an ROI on that. And in fact, he was taking a loss with a number of charges being taken by passengers. Luis's Uber was an experience too. It was a super clean car. He had Latin music playing, and that made me so happy, especially being in Miami. It just gave me all the Miami vibes. He had disco lights. I don't even know how else to describe them. Disco lights in his car. He had dark curtains on the back windows for privacy, and he even had a fog machine. It was impressive. Luis, on top of that, provided excellent customer service. He was friendly, talkative, engaging, and both loaded and unloaded our bags for us. We also quickly learned that family is important to Luis. Like, immediately upon meeting him, before we even got into his Uber, Luis was gushing about how he just became a first-time uncle that day, like earlier that day. According to Luis, he also shared with us that he's been able to pay, or at one point he paid $30,000 to get other family members to Miami from Cuba, all from running his Uber business. Now, I don't know what was involved and why it cost $30,000. I didn't ask. At that point, it did not matter. I was incredibly impressed with Luis and told him so at the end of our ride. This episode is brought to you by the Savvy Shopkeeper Quiz. As a shopkeeper myself, I've learned that there are action steps we can take during specific stages on our retail journeys that help us create efficiency and improve profitability so we can grow. But first, it helps to know which stage you're in so I can help you determine what to focus on. Sign up for my newsletter and take the quiz to find out which shopkeeper stage you're in. You'll get a helpful Savvy Shopkeeper roadmap with a list of helpful podcast episodes and 2 free resources for where you currently are in your journey. If you want to take the quiz, visit savvyshopkeeper.com/quiz. So, of course, I had other questions, and I asked Luis what was his ultimate business goal, because I just knew it went beyond driving an Uber. Luis definitely had a plan. He told us he's now saving up to open and run a jet ski business in Miami. And yes, he already had all of this mapped out in his head. I wasn't the only one impressed with Luis. My husband gave Luis a generous cash tip, acknowledging what I also noticed while in the Uber and having this conversation with him. So after we exited the Uber, I looked at Luis's profile. And if you ever look at an Uber driver's profile, and I didn't know this, it says why I Uber. And that's where the driver can indicate, like, why are they Ubering? And Luis's response was short and sweet. It was one word: freedom. I was blown away. What drives Luis? And I should say pun intended here. Get it? What drives Luis? When I shared my joke with my husband, he just shook his head. Well, anyhow, what drives Luis is his why. It's freedom for himself and for his family. I think it's easy for us to get lost in the how-to, the frustrations of running our businesses, the numbers, the managing people, the inventory, and wearing 100 hats. But what about our why? Like, Luis was savvy enough to treat what people often consider a side hustle as a business. But even more importantly, Luis taught me a really memorable lesson in just a short 20-minute drive. And that's that we shouldn't underestimate the power of our why. If you found this podcast episode helpful, please share it with a retail business friend or leave me a rating and review on Apple Podcast. I would genuinely appreciate it. If you want to see the show notes to this episode or find links to anything I mentioned, and I'm not even sure I mentioned any other podcast episode. Oh, I did. I mentioned episode 159. I don't think I really mentioned anything else. I just thought that the story around Luis was incredibly important to share. Anyhow, you can visit my blog at savvyshopkeeper.com/episode 166. Until the next episode, be savvy and boss up. And I'm going to add, don't forget your why.